So how can we build bulletproof ankles? So today I'm going to teach you one very simple training technique, takes no time at all pretty much, in which you can develop much stronger and reliable ankles. So this can really be applied to any sport. It could be applied to football, running, sprinting, dance, parkour, climbing, really anything that requires a little bit of stress on the ankle. And so I'm going to describe a few different terms, talk a little bit about range of motion, differences between flexibility and mobility. And through all of this, you'll gain a decent bit of knowledge of, how this technique works and how to do it and kind of how to progress with it. So I started doing this technique myself when I was doing parkour a few years back. So you can imagine when you're jumping between two walls in parkour, if you don't make the jump, a lot of the time you'll bounce off, which is where your feet hit the wall and you'll bounce back to the floor. It can be safe if you do it correctly. However, if you're doing it with kind of too much of a distance, if your feet land the wrong way, then your toes hit the wall and they kind of bounce, your feet bounce kind of into your shin. And this can cause strains, tears, all sorts, but most of the time it's just a little sprain and it hurts a little bit. We call it ankle thing. Now, I used to get these quite a lot, especially when doing flips. And it's through doing this technique that I literally could bounce off walls. My feet would pretty much touch my shins, but I would be fine because I'd worked my ankles and my calves in that range of motion and I had become strong in that range of motion. So that's really what we're going to talk about today, and we'll get you to that place. No issue about that. So the first thing we want to talk about are kind of the ranges of motion that we're going to be mainly focusing on here in the ankle. So you can imagine this here is my leg and this is my foot, okay? So we have dorsiflexion, which is essentially bringing the foot towards the shin, and we have something called plantar flexion, which is bringing the foot kind of downwards, so like pressing with your toes essentially. The calf are broken down into two muscles. You've got the gastrocnemius, which is like the big kind of calf muscle you see, and then you've got the soleus, which is kind of underneath and to the sides of the gastrocnemius, and it's mainly used for stability. So the gastrocnemius is used for kind of, pushing the toes up and stuff like that. Now, the main thing we're kind of focusing now is mobility, not necessarily flexibility. So flexibility we kind of describe as a passive range of motion. So that might be placing your leg up onto a wall, stretching forward and holding that position. Now, this creates an extended range of motion. However, your body doesn't know how to control that range of motion. You haven't got any muscle contraction while you're doing a passive stretch. So therefore, we've actually found through research that people who are hypermobile are more likely to suffer from injury than those who are hypomobile. Slightly, ever so slightly, but it's quite an interesting thing. You might think those who are more flexible are more injury kind of resistant, but in fact they're more injury prone. And this is very simple because they don't have the control, the muscle strength to control that range of motion. So if they haven't got the control, when they go in that range of motion, all the kind of pressure, all the stress is then on the connective tissues, the ligaments and the tendons and the joints, which is not what we want. So we want mobility, which is essentially, you could call it active flexibility. So moving through a range of motion. So you're getting a stretch, but you're actively moving through that stretch and back, engaging the muscles, creating an awareness of that range of motion. So for this exercise, you are going to need one of two things, okay? You're going to need either a wobble board or something equivalent of, or you can simply use a stair, okay? Just a normal stair you find outside or just in the house, anything like that, that's no issue. So with these two things, we're going to do something called an eccentric load, or a loaded stretch, essentially. Now, you may have heard of a calf raise, quite a popular exercise for building mass with the calf. So it's essentially where you will be standing on the floor or on a box of some sort, and you'll very simply push with the toes and raise your heels up, so you're kind of engaging that calf. Common exercise, okay? Now, what we want to do with this is we want to do this on the stair or on the wobble board. A wobble board is preferred. However, a stair kind of works fine for day-to-day kind of use and that. And especially seeing as a lot of gyms are closed. So by using a stair or using a wobble board, it allows us to get our heel much deeper on the eccentric, on the negative, when we're coming down on the calf raise. And what this does is this will act as, it will give a good stretch, a loaded stretch in our Achilles, in our kind of calf, and just around the ankle. Now, the loaded stretch essentially means that we are adding weight, which is of course our body weight, to the stretch. And the eccentric means that we're going down slowly with muscle control. And then of course the concentric is when we push back up. That will help build the control and the strength in this kind of range of motion, okay? Simple as that. So what I want you to do is you're very simply going to go stand on the stair, just with your kind of the front of your foot, the balls of your foot on the stair, your heel off. Or on the wobble board, you can stand with your toes in the center, okay? The ball of your foot in the center, in the middle there. And very simply, what I want you to do with an assistance, using a handle, using a hand railing, anything like that, is very slowly go into a calf stretch. So allow your foot to do dorsiflexion. Allow your toes to come towards your shin and really feel the stretch, but do this with control. You can go down for around 5 to 10 seconds, maybe 8 seconds is a sweet spot. Feel the stretch, okay? And then when you feel the stretch, come out of the stretch slightly, breathe in, breathe out, go a bit deeper into the stretch, okay? The relaxing will allow you to get a little bit deeper in that stretch. And once you're fully deep in that stretch, nice and slow again, maybe for 8 seconds or so, I want you to push back up. So this is plantar flexion, when you're pushing your toes down and your heel is now raising. Okay, so you're now using the calf muscle and go all the way up to your tiptoes. And you want to do this for around 5 sets. So because we're doing it, the repetition is quite slow. 5 reps is enough, that'll be a good amount to try and, to get a good kind of total kind of load on the calf and through this range of motion. So this is essentially it. By using a wobble board or even by using one foot on the stair, we are kind of engaging the stabilization muscle, which is the soleus, which is the muscle kind of behind and kind of on the sides of the gastrocnemius. And so that is kind of the stability aspect of it, and the depth we're kind of achieving is, of course, using the gastrocnemius when we go all the way down. And so really you want to practice this, for maybe 3 sets would be fair if you're doing it for 5 reps with those slow repetitions, like I was saying. This will really help build some really solid calves, really solid ankle mobility. And that's really the key thing. We want strength through a range of motion. So give this a go. Like I said, a wobble board is better because you can achieve a deeper kind of range of motion because it does wobble, it does move inwards. And of course, it's more, it's not as stable. So that will help build the stability in your ankle too. Of course, you can do it with one leg. I used to do it with one leg. You can do it with 2 if you're a beginner. Only go down as far as you're comfortable. With a little bit of discomfort. Stretching gives you a bit of discomfort, but yeah. And then of course, go back up nice and slow. That is essentially it. You do this for a while and you will reap the benefits, I promise you that. So let me know what you think down below. Let me know if you've had any experience with this. Let me know how you get on with it, any benefits you see from it, and yeah. Until next time, peace.